All right, good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
So, we're going to continue our survey of the Old Testament today. We're slowly making our way through Genesis. We finished up Abraham last week. Hopefully, we'll get through Jacob today and maybe get started on Joseph. No new updates on when the book is coming out yet for the study. No new news. So, let's see. Fred, will you open us up in prayer, please? Thank you.
Lord, our Father in heaven, thank you so much, Lord, for allowing us to be here, for watching over us in all things we do. We pray, Lord, that we can learn and grow together, and we can be uplifted in all we do. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Right. I need to get that back. So our key verse again, 1 Kings 8:23, O Lord God of Israel, there is no God like you in heaven above or on earth beneath, keeping covenant and showing steadfast love to your servants who walk before you with all their heart. We've been looking here through, starting with Genesis, to see how God is different, how there is no other God like him. We've seen it evidenced so far in that he created us on purpose. He wants fellowship with us. He wants relationship with us. We weren't an accident. He knows when to say enough. He knows when to say that I've created enough and I've destroyed enough. He knows when to stop. He knows he knows how to work with his people. He knows who to call out. He knows how to. He speaks to Abraham and others in a language and in a way they understand in terms of customs, rituals, things like that. So he's meeting them where they are instead of saying, okay, trying to keep things, a bit obtuse. He keeps few things obtuse, I guess is a good way of putting it. There was something I wanted to say and I don't remember what it is, and it'll come back to me. So, Jacob's story essentially starts somewhat in the middle of chapter 25. He's born along with a couple seconds after his brother Esau. What does Jacob mean name-wise? Heel grabber, supplanter. I think of Jacob, if we want to look at this in literary terms, I think of Jacob as a trickster. Anyone familiar with the Midsummer Night's Dream? Think of Puck, except with a whole lot of baggage and problems. Puck's just mischievous. Jacob is not so much. But I think of Jacob kind of as a trickster. So Jacob and Esau are born. Esau comes in one day. We don't know how much time passes, but Esau's like, I'm hungry. Give me that stew. Jacob's like, give me the birthright. And Esau's like, I'm going to die. He can't wait another 20 minutes, to, to get some himself. So he just, gives Jacob the birthright. Which essentially means then that Jacob's going to be first in line per se, though as far as I don't think Isaac ever finds this out, at least not for a while, as we'll see here in a bit. So chapter 26, Isaac and Rebecca, there's a famine, just like there was in the time of Abraham. And they go to where? To Abimelech, in the land of Gerar, or wherever it may be, or to the Philistines. They went to Gerar, to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And this time God says to them, hey, don't go to Egypt. Maybe they were thinking about going down to Egypt, but they don't. Note, if this is going chronologically, this means Jacob and Esau are already born, which makes this story kind of awkward where it's at. Because apparently these kids are just invisible. But Isaac does the whole she's my sister thing with Rebecca like Abraham did with Sarah. And again, remember, using the term sister didn't necessarily mean always definitely genetic way we term sister. It had social connotations to it. But Abimelech sees, and I don't know if this is the same Abimelech that fell for this with Abraham's with Isaac's parents or not. But same name, same king, same location maybe. But he sees them. Some translations say fondling, some say laughing. I think fondling's probably a more appropriate term for what Abimelech figures out, but laughing is a play on Isaac's name, so there could be that there too. There are puns and things in the Bible that we don't always pick up on. Samson has a really good one. Good pun that I won't quote here because it would not be appropriate in English. But so then there's a fight over wells again, just like there were with Abraham, because remember, Isaac, like Abraham, is nomadic. Therefore, you need water, and wells will only have so much water at times, especially if there's just been a famine. So that's chapter 26. And God will reiterate his promise as well to Isaac and expand it a bit. And essentially, Isaac's going to get to settle down in one place a bit more than Abraham did. Okay, chapter 27. Here's where we have some more. Here's where the tricking starts. Isaac is old and his eyes were dim, so he could not see. This is interesting because Isaac's going to live for at least another 20, 25 years after this. He's like, but I can't see. I'm old. I don't know when I'm going to die. So, I'm saying what the text says. So he's going to say, he's going to bring in Esau because Esau is the firstborn. He's also Isaac's preferred son, just as Jacob is Rebecca's preferred son. Note this favoritism in this family. We usually think about Jacob playing favorites, but Isaac's playing favorites before that. Now notice this. Did Abraham play favorites between Isaac and Ishmael? Not really. Sarah certainly played favorites, but Abraham was always on the looking out for Ishmael's interests. Isaac here is more, I prefer Esau over Jacob because Esau makes good food, makes good meat. That's the reason we're given. Rebecca prefers Jacob. And as weird as it sounds almost in some ways like Jacob is being, it says, he was a man of the tents, an indoors person. In some ways, Jacob might have been being groomed or trained maybe by Rebecca, maybe some place by Isaac to actually run the family. Because Esau was so busy hunting and doing things all the time instead. And maybe that has something to do with the birthright. I don't know. But that'll come into play later when we get to Joseph. Because you can run the family, but it's hard to run a family and a household when you have a ton of servants and animals and be out hunting at the same time. It's hard to do, hunting for food at the same time. So, but Isaac prefers Esau, and again, he's following the customary order too. Esau came first, so he's like, make me some food and I will bless you. And so Rebecca finds out about this. She tells Jacob, hey, this is what your dad's going to do. Get some skins, put them on your arms. Let's make some food, the kind of food your dad likes, and we will trick him. And it works. It almost doesn't, because at some point Isaac's like, you sound like Jacob, but you smell like Esau, and you feel like Esau, so therefore you are Esau. Because again, Isaac's vision, not so good. This is probably a good reminder that we should use rely on all our senses as well as we can, and not just one or two.
Stephen, before you get any further, I wanted to ask this 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Under the title of learning about no other God like you, about the characteristics and attributes of Jehovah God, and being a teacher, and you kind of specialize in literature, I'm just trying, I never really took a course in living world religions, but do we have any record of a so-called God that is ever as intimate with his creation as we read in Scripture about Jehovah God? There are some religions that have revelations, so to speak, from God that are written down.
Zeus was very intimate with his people, and intimate in the wrong way. which caused a lot of problems. But again, Greek mythology comes way after this. But I do not know of any god outside from Jehovah who is intimate in this way with his people.
Even the phrase, it is written, which is so common in both the Old and New Testament, is there, I'm not asking just you, but anybody, is there any other religion that accentuates this notion that it is written, this is God speaking to you? I mean, we all have, many of the religions must have had their soothsayers and whatever that were supposedly speaking on behalf of God, but I'm just asking us to think about this because it's quite awesome. Have there been any occasions where even supposed gods have behaved in a way that Jehovah God has, in that he speaks to his people, he tells them, write this down? I'm just asking.
I'm not completely sure, to be honest. One thing I do know is that for the most part, most of the gods were essentially, no matter what the religion would be essentially that I am a god, you are not, you fear me. And essentially the relationship was built on fear. And though yes, we do fear God. We do fear God. We're called to. We fear him respectfully. Sometimes we fear him in a much more scared way because we've put ourselves in that situation. But at the same time, there's a verse, it's in Hosea, I believe, and it's Jesus quotes it, and I think it pops up later on in even later on in the Testament. That God prefers mercy over sacrifice, and sacrifice is necessary, but because God would rather have mercy over sacrifice, which he provides to us through Jesus, the ultimate sacrifice, that sets him apart because everyone else is just sacrifice before mercy. Even if you start looking at the law in Leviticus for the priests, there was a lot of mercy built into there, especially after Nadab and Abihu offered profane fire, and Moses is like, why didn't you do all the stuff you're supposed to? And Aaron's like, look just what happened to my kids. And God doesn't say a thing there about, well, no, they need to finish what, no, God doesn't say a thing. So God wants mercy over prefers mercy over sacrifice. And that will come into play a lot later on. And that's what I believe is what ultimately sets God apart. And I don't know if we have that from anyone else. The only thing I could think of that is close is one of the gods in the Epic of Gilgamesh tells Napish system, whatever his name is, hey, we're going to destroy everyone because we can't sleep, build a boat, and that's it. And that's all I know. And I don't know if there's any directions after that. So
do we have any, even among mythology and so forth, is there anything that approaches God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son? Is there any other?
I've heard there's a correlation in Egyptian mythology, but I don't think it is. I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't say it's an exact parallel, because it is in this case in Egypt it was a cyclical. Cyclical. Amun-Ra is angry. He will kill his son, who is one of the gods, and then bring him back, and it just repeats over and over and over again. Because again, it's tied to perpetual sacrifice. And I don't know if whichever Egyptian god it is has a say in this. I need to study this more. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Larry? No. Okay. So chapter 27, Jacob gets away with getting the blessing, and Esau's like, don't you have another one? And Isaac's like, I don't. Which sounds really weird to us, but again, the word names had power. The things you would pronounce to people had power. I'm not saying like some magical, mystical power, but socially and things like that. So Isaac can't just say, I can't take this from Jacob and give it to you, or I can't give you something else. Because as far as he's concerned, he can't. Again, doesn't make sense to us, but in a lot of ways, this is God's going to take this and use this to get Jacob somewhere else. So we can because there's a famine coming to Egypt in about 17, 20, 30 years. So you need to start getting ready for that. Jacob doesn't know that. Esau doesn't know that. We know that, but that's because we have the whole story. So, Genesis 28, Jacob's given, we're given two reasons why Jacob leaves. One reason is that Esau plans on killing him after Isaac dies. We know that's going to take 20-some years, and at that point, Esau's not going to be so upset about it anymore. Esau's going to go and get married to several women, none of whom please his parents, and Rachel and Rebecca, I keep calling Rachel, Rebecca is going to tell Isaac, hey, these wives of Esau are driving me nuts. We should send, can we do something else for Jacob? And so they're going to tell Jacob, hey, go to Laban, go to your uncle and find a wife from your family, just like your father found a wife from the family. So yeah, we're given two reasons. So Jacob heads out, and he has a dream with the ladder / the steps, depending on your translation. It has to be a really wide ladder if you have multiple beings descending and ascending it. So steps might be better, but the ladder is what we're used to. Might be multiple ones. We don't know, but and then something interesting happens here. So if you remember in Genesis 24, Abraham's servant that was sent to get Rebecca made a conditional promise to God, made a conditional prayer to God that says, if A, B, C, D, and E happen, then we'll all know. Jacob's got to make a conditional promise or vow to God here, and starting in verse 20. Then Jacob made a vow saying, if God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and the stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you. I don't know about you, but I'm not sure about conditional promises and prayers to God have worked before. I think we need to be wary of them. I know the guy that founded Pepperdine, his was a conditional thing, I believe. I want to say too that there's several other things too, but I think that's something we don't really do very often. And this is, like, if I get back to my father's house safely, if these things happen, I'll worship you. Not I'll worship you and we'll take what you choose to give me. So, and again, it's a bit of a different society. Maybe this was the norm. I don't know. But that's 28. So chapter 29, Jacob finds Laban, who is just as shady in some ways as Jacob. He meets Rachel. Jacob meets Rachel, and he's like, oh, she's pretty. The sheep look really good too. Because if the sheep look healthy and good, that means it's profitable. That means that you can make a livelihood. You could make a livelihood out of them. So, we laugh at that, but so he goes to Laban. He's like, "Hey, I'm related to you," and he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So Jacob's there for a month or two, and Laban's like, "If you're gonna be here and doing stuff, I should pay you." And Jacob's like, "What do you want?" He's like, "Give me Rachel." It's like, okay, 7 years. So Jacob works hard for 7 years, doesn't care, and it just passes by in an instant to him because he loves Rachel so much. Wedding ceremonies and customs were different back then. Jacob assumes he's marrying Rachel, and he wakes up in the morning, the veil is off, and he has spent the night with Rachel's sister. Poor Leah always, I don't know, I tend to feel bad for Leah, even though she does develop have a bit of a rough attitude, but it's So anyways, Jacob's like, hey, what happened here? And Laban's like, well, it's the custom of the land for the older daughter to marry first. I don't know if that custom is true or not. I haven't read anything that verifies it, but Laban apparently wants Leah to be taken care of in the future. So Laban's like, if you serve me for another 7 years, you can have Rachel. Now, Jacob doesn't have to work another 7 years before he gets to marry Rachel. He does marry Rachel within a few weeks afterwards, once the customary time is done, however long that is, and then he works those 7 years. This is going to cause a lot of problems. And one of the earliest things I believe it's in Numbers, because so the law is given in multiple parts. It's given in Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and it's all like one. God gives things in pieces, and one of the things God's gonna say is, you're not gonna marry the sister of your wife as long as your wife is alive. Just not bring shame to her or to the father. So God's gonna like. So when we get to the law, God's like, this isn't happening again. So Genesis 20, so this goes on through Genesis 30. Rachel is not able to have kids. God closes her womb. Leah is going to give birth to 4 kids, 4 boys in a row. And interestingly enough, again, names are important. Names have power. Or, names have, mean things. So, let's see, where do the names start here? Chapter 29:31. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, now my husband will love me. She's given him a son. What more can he want? She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me the son also. She called his name Simeon. A lot of times these names really literally mean part of it, So like Simeon means herd. Reuben means seed. It's a son. So again, she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Levi. Therefore his name is called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Note, she wasn't praising the Lord the first time, the second time, or the third time, but by the 4th time she's like, okay, I'll praise God now. Because he's given me 4 sons. Did Jacob love Leah more after she gave him 4 sons? No. Rachel is going to have some trouble with this. And again, doing the custom of the land, go like Sarah did. Here's my servants. So essentially what happened is when you got a woman of rank or privilege in some ways, or standing got married, they'd have a companion, or I call them a maid or a nurse or whatever, to be with them. So in this case, both of them had these. Rebecca had one as well. She's mentioned when they first leave, and then she's not mentioned again until she dies, so we kind of forget about her. But it comes out in Genesis. It comes later out of the middle of nowhere, like, oh, Rebecca's nurse died. I'm like, wait, where did she come from? Well, she came with Rebecca in Genesis 24. We just haven't heard from her. So Rachel will give Jacob give Bilhah, and she'll have a couple of children. And Leah's not conceiving anymore, so she'll still give Jacob Zilpah, and so now Jacob's fathering children with 3 different women. So 2 wives, 2 concubines. This is not good. No one in the Bible that has more than 1 wife does what has healthy relationships. It just doesn't happen. There's a reason why, because God says it's not meant to be this way. And again, that's something that sets God apart, because again, the custom of the land is you have multiple wives, you have multiple, and God will make it clear. And he will not tell the law that you should not have more than 1, he strongly recommends that you have just 1. So then Leah has 2 more boys, and she has Dinah, the only of Jacob's daughters that is named, if he has more daughters. And then God remembered Rachel. Did God forget Rachel? No. It's more God chose that time to look upon Rachel and God went, okay, now it's time for you. And she gives Jacob Joseph, who will be his favorite son from his favorite wife. Never mind the fact that he has 10 other sons and a daughter at this point. Again, favoritism is not good. So Jacob's going to do well. Laban, after 14 years, would be like, okay, you've worked your debt off for my 2 daughters. Now what? Jacob's like, just give me some of the sheep, give me some of the goats, and however well they do, that'll be my wages. So for 6 years, this is going to happen. Laban's going to be messing around with the wage scale this whole time. Jacob's going to be manipulating things with reeds and sticks and things that make no sense to me. I don't know if anyone... he does this weird thing where he'll, like, put sticks in the water, or reeds sometimes, and certain goats will go and mate, but others won't and stuff. And he eventually builds up a flock that is much healthier than his uncle's. So chapter 31, Jacob's gonna start overhearing that, hey, this Jacob guy's doing better than everyone else that's been than Laban's own kids. And Laban's not gonna be looking too nicely at Jacob all of a sudden. Jacob's gonna have a dream where he's seeing the sheep and the goats and how things are working, and he's gonna be told, hey, it's time to leave. So he will leave. And his Leah and Rachel are going to come to him, and this is the only time they ever seem to get along. Essentially, hey, all the money that we're supposed to get from our dad, he's spent, he's wasted. You need to take us and your kids out of here because things are not good. So they'll leave. They'll run up. They'll escape. They'll essentially run in some way. Kind of hard to run when you have, a caravan of 10 children, and all these flocks and things like that. But but he chooses a good time when Laban's busy elsewhere, overseeing shearing elsewhere. Because again, these people are somewhat nomadic. So Rachel's going to grab the household gods with her. Remember, this is before Sinai, and God has not told Jacob or anyone that we know of yet, hey, you will worship only me. And another reason why Rachel is taking the household idols is whoever has the idols has the power in the family. So if Jacob has them, he socially has power and stuff like that. Never mind how he might have gotten them, and Jacob doesn't even know that they are in the camp with him. Laban's going to overtake them, and he's going and but God's going to come to him at night and say, hey, don't say anything good or bad to Jacob. Laban's going to struggle to do that because essentially he's going to be like, those flocks are mine, those kids are mine, these the daughters are mine, completely, and maybe technically they are technically his because he's still alive, but at the same time, Jacob has prospered through him. He's like, but I can't do anything because God told me not to. The only thing I want to know is, where are my idols? And Jacob's like, we don't have them, but whoever finds them, execute them, put them to death. So Rachel's going to hide them and tell her father that it is my customary time. And he's going to be like, okay, just walk right out. And I wonder if this is while she's pregnant with Benjamin or not, or I don't know what the timeline is here, but that'd be really interesting. We didn't have a good idea. I don't think we understood science as well and biology back then as well as they understood biology the way we do now. But I'm just off the top of my head here. Anyways, but we haven't talked much about how God is being very different yet here, because this is focusing so much on what Jacob's doing just to survive. So Jacob will eventually have several meals with Laban because they can't agree on where to have the meal. They can't agree on what to name a pillar or anything. These two people just do not like each other at this point. They eventually make a promise that says, hey, we will not cross over into each other's territory to harm each other, and Jacob will not take any more wives while Leah and Rachel are alive. Which I think Jacob's probably already decided that's probably for the best. So Laban goes on his way, and now Jacob so Jacob went on his way, and angels of God met him. This is chapter 32. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is God's camp. So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau in the land of Seir in the country of Edom. So Esau's kind of had to move away from where Isaac is, probably with his own flocks and things like that, or maybe the hunting's just better there. I don't know. But Esau's kind of moved off on his own with his 3 wives, one of which is related to Ishmael, so we have more interfamily breeding here. It gets really confusing, too, because their names are never in the same order, and sometimes their fathers are different, too, but that doesn't matter here. Anyways, he sends to Esau saying, hey, I've sojourned with Uncle Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants, and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in his sight. The response from Esau is, Esau's on his way with with let's see, there were 400 men with him. So Esau's bringing a small army. Remember, last Jacob saw Esau, Esau was planning on killing Jacob. So Jacob's probably a bit worried. I mean, it's been 20 plus years. It's been probably a bit over 20 years at this point. But Jacob's probably still worried. 7 years for Rachel, 7 other years for Rachel, then 6 years with the flocks and things like that, plus traveling time. So it's been both ways. So it's been a good 20 plus years. Imagine not speaking to your brother or sister for 20 plus years. Yeah. I can't imagine that. So Jacob's gonna pray. Well, first Jacob's gonna do his own thing first, and then he's gonna pray. He tends to do that. So he's going to divide. So he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 camps, saying, if Esau attacks one, then the other will be safe. Then he's going to pray. He says, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac." Kind of doing this generational listing thing here to remind God, hey, you're the God of my grandfather and you're the God of my father, in case God forgot who Jacob is. Again, that's something really more, I think, out of the covenant and lands of time, the time era, where essentially, God's needed to be reminded about who you are and how you're connected to them. Obviously, we know God doesn't need to be reminded of that, but it would have been customary to list things like that. And we'll see it off and on throughout the Old Testament, but here it just seems really, really interesting, especially because remember, Isaac, has Jacob safely come back to his parents' land yet, to his home? No, so if he's keeping that somewhat rash vow he made, the conditional off prayer, then he's like, well, I'm talking to you, God, but I'm not worshiping you yet, though I have made an altar or two. But return to your who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do you good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I become 2 camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So in other words, Jacob is saying, God, you told me to leave Uncle Laban, and now this danger is threatening me. You said I would be safe. What's going on here? Don't forget me. And you know what? We talk the same way a lot. I think we talk to God the same way sometimes too when we're in trouble, where we think, okay, no, if you promised this, if this is supposed to be happening, then why is everything going wrong all of a sudden? Why am I in danger? Why is something, I think it's a very human thing to do. So Jacob's shown some humility here. He's shown some being definitely very human here as well. He's like, hey, you promised me this. Why is this happening? So Jacob stays there that night, and from when he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. Because, maybe Esau just wants more flocks. And he said to he handed them to his servants and said, pass ahead on me, and put a space between drove and drove. And Esau immediately says, who do you belong? And they'll say, hey, it's Jacob's, and they're present, and there's more, and Jacob is behind. Then he's going to send a second and a third drove with that. Then he's going, and that keeps going. So then Jacob is going to send his kids off in front of him and his wife and stuff, and Jacob's just going to hang behind and be last. Because he's safest, because he'll be safe that way. So again, God said, hey, you're going to be okay, but Jacob's like, I'm just going to put myself at the very, very, very end of this wagon train, and essentially just in case something happens. Just in case, which means that something could happen to the kids or the wives, but I might be safe. So again, we laugh, but it's really and I think this is I think, to be honest, this is why he has this wrestling battle with God all of a sudden, because I think this is God saying, hey, no, You're the head of your family. You don't go last. And I think in some ways, with this physical fight he has with God, or a form of God in some form, I think a lot of this is to get him to realize, no, I'm not taking this. I'm not living by faith here. I'm living by fear. So there's this wrestling that happens, this fighting, this striving, and he's told, hey, your name's gonna be Israel, and Israel means he strives with God, which could have both negative and positive connotations. So Jacob will get through there. His hip's gonna be broken somewhat, or at least the socket on it. Ouch. And because of that, we get this interesting tidbit here. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. All right, we'll see how things go next week when Jacob and Esau are reunited after 20-some years of silence and potential acrimony. Thank you.
Thank you.